Kilometers. This game is Boji. Every time it's crowded, you only sit somewhere. After the stations, he gets up homes to catch the bus. If he finds enough to sleep, he cleverly hops from the seat. After reaching, Boji heads toward the boarding point. He'll walk the opposite. Before long, his daily routine caught everyone's attention. That's when people discovered Boji wasn't just a stray dog. 3 years ago, his owner had passed away. His owner would take him on little adventures to that island. And now, even without Boji never stopped going there, just to hold on to the beautiful moment of the lunch. The dog travels.
Okay.
Bro,
That was
will you put on?
This teacher thought his students were up because none of them had their cameras on during his last day of virtual class. This turns students were upset because none of it was a short Sunday, but it's really prison. Took one bite of his meal and realized that he was completely rotten. So he spat it out in disgust. And as he stood heartbroken, all he could think about was his late father, who was also a chef and always talking. During a good meal was the purest expression of love. He thought his birthday was completely ruined, but his kind cellmate saw his despair and refused to let him suffer. So what he did next was an incredible act of friendship. How many years do you want dead? 10 days? Usually morning crew. Over 100 passengers on the plane. Not a single person noticed. The pilot quickly disposed of the bottle and drank the air in one go. Then returned and went straight to sleep. This kind of behavior. The attendant remained very calm and explained. This wasn't the pilot's first duty. It's usual. But just as they were preparing to leave, it happened. The plane elevator in a malfunction. Violent turbulence made the passengers panic. Everyone was terrified. Only the pilots who had just woken up stayed. First had the flight attendant. But then he discovered the plane suddenly lost control and began falling straight down. He urgently told the to pull up, but no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't pull the plane up. The pilot quickly notified the control tower to immediately enter emergency status. To slow the plane's descent, the pilot dumped the fuel to reduce the aircraft's weight. Then he had the co-pilot lower the landing gear, preparing for an emergency landing. But the plane was falling straight down. An emergency landing was simply impossible. Just as the pilot was figuring out what to do, the overhead bins and suddenly opened. Our flight attendant saw us and went to close them. But who knew that turbulence would knock her unconscious on the spot? The plane was slow. Buildings on the ground were already clearly visible. They were about to crash into a densely populated area. To avoid the crowd, the pilot made a bold decision. He turned the plane's direction, making the aircraft itself No one expected was that the pilot was going to fly the plane upside down with the cooperation of the co-pilot and flight attendants. The plane actually let go and successfully stopped falling. Just then, the boy who wasn't wearing his seatbelt fell from his seat. Flight attendants saw this and immediately went to help, carrying the boy back to his seat. After fastening his seatbelt, he unfortunately found his. The crisis still wasn't over. Although the plane stopped falling, there wasn't enough fuel to reach the airport. Plus, with the engine failure, the pilot could only decide to make an emergency landing in a nearby open field. That was a church, with a group of people holding a ceremony below. They were about to crash into the church. The pilot desperately tried to steer away, but the wing still collided with it. This wasn't while unconscious. The pilot vaguely saw someone rescue him. Many passengers were also safely rescued. Fortunately, he had dumped the fuel earlier, which prevented the plane from exploding. The pilot secretly poured something into his own fuel. Over 100 passengers on the plane. Not that. This she accidentally landed on the prisoner's eyes, but instead of helping, each one pushed his head away. Again and again, nobody wanted to let him rest until he leaned on a woman. At first, she moved away too, but the second time it happened, she smiled, let him rest on her shoulders, and then something completely unexpected happened. I'll show you. But first, look at this hot speed. If you jumped off the International Space Station, you might think you could just skydive down to
Okay. Back to basic track. Me too, I'm going to. I'm going to be so
Bro,
yeah, I'm gonna clip that.
will you put on